The legend of Maple Hollow was whispered among those daring enough to explore the depths of the forest during the full moon's reign. It was said that the town appeared shrouded in a silvery mist, its cobblestone streets glistening under the moonlight as though suspended in time. A sense of nostalgia permeated the air, the scent of wood smoke curling softly from chimneys and mingling with the crisp autumn breeze. For those who stumbled upon it, the town promised a quaint charm that belied its sinister undercurrents. They were drawn to the warm glow of the gas lamps and the faint echoes of laughter, unaware of the darkness lurking beneath the surface. Annie, a local folklore enthusiast, had always been fascinated by the tales of Maple Hollow. With each passing month, her curiosity grew until the pull became irresistible. As the moon swelled to its fullest, she ventured into the forest, her flashlight weaving through the gnarled branches like fingers tracing secrets in the dark. The night was eerily silent, her footsteps muffled by the thick carpet of leaves. When the mist rolled in, she felt a shiver run down her spine, a mix of anticipation and dread. As she pushed through the fog, the outlines of a town began to emerge, just as the stories described. The town of Maple Hollow stood before Annie, its Victorian-era buildings bathed in an ethereal glow. The gas lamps flickered invitingly, casting elongated shadows that danced across the cobblestones. As Annie stepped onto the main street, a peculiar sensation washed over her, an unsettling mix of welcome and warning. The air hummed with the sound of a distant carnival, a symphony of clinking glasses and murmured conversations. Yet something about the townsfolk she glimpsed seemed off. Their smiles were too wide, their eyes too eager, as if anticipating her arrival. Despite her unease, Annie felt compelled to join them, drawn into the revelry like a moth to a flame. As Annie wandered down the street, she found herself surrounded by strangers who seemed to know her name. They greeted her with an unsettling warmth, offering her food and drink, insisting she join their celebration. Though their hospitality was overwhelming, there was an indescribable strangeness in their eyes. Her instincts screamed for her to leave, but her feet refused to obey, moving of their own accord deeper into the heart of the festivity. The music grew louder, and the townsfolk's laughter became a haunting echo that reverberated through the night. It was as if the town itself was alive, and Annie was merely a puppet on its strings. As the night wore on, Annie noticed that time seemed to warp around her. Minutes stretched into hours, yet the moon never moved from its place in the sky. The festivities continued unabated, with no sign of fatigue among the townsfolk. The clinking of glasses and raucous laughter became a discordant symphony that set her teeth on edge. She tried to slip away, but every path led her back to the town square, where a grand celebration was in full swing. It was as if the town was a labyrinth, designed to keep her trapped within its illusory embrace. The realization struck her like a cold wave. Maple Hollow had no intention of letting her leave. Desperation gnawed at Annie as she searched for a way out, her heart pounding like a trapped creature's within her chest. The townsfolk watched her with knowing smiles, their eyes glimmering with something dark and ancient. Each attempt to escape only led her deeper into the town's embrace, as if the very ground conspired against her. She stumbled into an alleyway, which seemed to stretch endlessly into the night. The shadows writhed around her, whispering secrets she couldn't comprehend. It felt like the town was breathing, inhaling and exhaling with each step she took, drawing her further into its sinister depths. In the dim light of the alley, Annie found a momentary refuge. Her breath came in ragged gasps as she leaned against the cold brick wall, trying to collect her thoughts. The air was thick with the scent of decay, an ominous reminder of the town's true nature. Fear twisted her stomach, but beneath it was a flicker of determination. She couldn't remain a pawn in this twisted game, trapped by shadows and whispers. Yet, as she gazed towards the town square, the draw was undeniable. The moon hung heavily above, its silvery light a beacon that both beckoned and warned. She had to unravel the mystery of Maple Hollow or risk becoming one of its lost souls. With renewed resolve, Annie forced herself back into the throng of merriment. The townsfolk swirled around her like phantoms in a fever dream, their laughter now a chorus of madness. She focused on the task at hand, her senses attuned to the slightest shift in the atmosphere. There had to be a clue, a sign, something to tear through the illusion that held her captive. As she scanned the crowd, her eyes met those of a man across the square. His gaze was intense, almost pleading. In that brief connection, she sensed a shared understanding. He too was trapped, but perhaps he held the key to their escape. Annie moved through the crowd with purpose, weaving between the revelers like a whisper on the wind. The man's eyes never left hers, guiding her through the sea of faces until they stood barely a breath apart. He leaned in, his voice a hushed murmur beneath the cacophony of celebration. "Maple Hollow has its secrets," he said, his words laced with urgency. "But there's a path, a way out, hidden from those who would keep us here." His revelation was a lifeline, and despite the oppressive weight of the town's enchantment, hope flickered within Annie. She clung to his words, ready to follow wherever they might lead, for the chance of freedom glimmered like a distant star. Just as Annie thought she could find solace in the familiar rhythm of the town square, a discordant note pierced through the symphony of festivities. The laughter around her turned hollow, echoing eerily in the dim, otherworldly glow. The faces of the townsfolk twisted subtly, their cheerful expressions now tinged with something sinister and predatory. An icy shiver ran down her spine as she realized that the eyes watching her were not those of mere villagers, but of something ancient and hungry. Their gazes bore into her, heavy with a silent promise of entrapment. The festive air turned stifling, and the very ground beneath her feet seemed to pulse with a life of its own, urging her to flee. Annie's heart thundered in her chest as she stumbled backwards, seeking escape from the oppressive scrutiny of the villagers. Her mind raced, grappling with the incomprehensible reality that had ensnared her. She had come seeking a quaint, picturesque town, only to find herself in a realm twisted by time and shadow. The air crackled with a lingering, malevolent energy, and the once inviting cobblestone paths now seemed to lead her in circles, ensnaring her in the town's sinister grasp. Panic surged as she realized the townsfolk were closing in, their movements synchronized with a haunting, unnatural precision, guiding her inexorably towards the heart of their dark celebration. Desperation clawed at Annie's every thought as she felt the town itself conspiring against her escape. The streets, once wide and welcoming, had narrowed into labyrinthine corridors that seemed to shift and warp with her every step. Shadows danced along the walls, long and elongated, as if reaching for her with malicious intent. She could hear the faint whisper of ancient chants carried by the wind, a language that seemed to burrow into her mind and echo with a haunting familiarity. Her senses screamed for her to run, to break free from the binding threads of Maple Hollow before the town claimed her as its own. With every strained breath, Annie felt the relentless pull of Maple Hollow drawing her deeper into its nightmarish embrace. The festive lights flickered erratically, casting grotesque shadows that writhed like living entities. The music, once lively and bright, now thumped with a slow, hypnotic rhythm that urged surrender. As she staggered through the distorted streets, her eyes caught the glint of a mirror in a shop window, reflecting not the vibrant celebration she had longed for, but a landscape of fear and despair. Her own reflection stared back at her, eyes wide with terror, as if urging herself to wake from this living nightmare. Annie's feet pounded against the unforgiving ground, her panicked footsteps echoing like a dirge through the empty streets. She couldn't shake the sensation of eyes watching her from every corner, every shadow. A strange fog began to coil around her ankles, rising from the cobblestones like an ethereal serpent. It seemed to whisper secrets of the town, tales of those who had entered before her and never returned. The very air was thick with dread, each breath a struggle against the suffocating grasp of a town that was alive in its own terrifying way. She knew she had to fight, to resist the siren call of Maple Hollow before it was too late. In the heart of the town, Annie found herself before an imposing structure, its silhouette looming against the silver moon. It was a hall of some sort, where the music and laughter resonated the strongest, yet the sounds twisted into mocking echoes of merriment. As she hesitated on the threshold, the door swung open with a creak, revealing a gathering of townsfolk whose faces were concealed by masks of grinning grotesques. Their eyes, visible through the slits, glinted with a predatory hunger as they beckoned her inside, their gestures a chilling parody of welcome. Annie's instincts screamed a warning, but the pull of the gathering was irresistible, drawing her into the malevolent heart of Maple Hollow. Stepping into the hall was like crossing a threshold into another world where time seemed suspended. The air was thick with a cloying, sweet scent that masked the underlying rot of decay. The masked villagers moved with a synchronized grace, a sinister choreography that ensnared Annie in its rhythm. As she was swept into a dance she could not control, she realized with mounting terror that each villager was not truly human, but something masquerading in the guise of humanity. Their movements were too fluid, too precise, as if controlled by unseen strings. It dawned upon her that she was becoming part of their macabre performance, another victim lost to the endless cycle of Maple Hollow. As the dance reached its fevered pitch, Annie felt the walls of reality begin to fray, unraveling at the edges like an old tapestry. A dizzying sense of vertigo overtook her as the townsfolk wove around her, their laughter a cascade of distorted harmonies. She could see glimpses through the masks now, shadows of countless faces trapped beneath, each one telling a story of entrapment and despair. Her heart sank as she realized each smile was a prisoner, every laugh a cry for help. In this moment of harrowing clarity, Annie understood the truth. Maple Hollow was a prison, and she was now part of its alluring facade, bound to lure others into its relentless cycle. A cacophony of sound enveloped Annie as the dance reached its final crescendo. It surged like a tidal wave, crashing over her and drowning all thought. She was no longer sure where she ended and the town began, her senses overwhelmed by the oppressive weight of Maple Hollow's malevolence. As the first light of dawn broke, the town began to fade, its structures dissolving into the mist like a mirage. Yet Annie remained, her form now ethereal and bound to the shifting shadows. She watched helplessly as the town vanished, leaving only echoes of laughter and the distant whisper of the woods, waiting to ensnare the next unwary traveler under the full moon's light. The forest stood silent as the sun rose, casting long shadows through the trees. In the clearing where Maple Hollow had been, there was only an expanse of untouched earth, as if the town had never existed. Yet Annie remained, now a phantom presence, her spirit bound to the place where reality and legend intertwined. She could feel the pull of the full moon still, a distant promise of the town's return. As she lingered in the shadows, she understood her new role in this eternal dance, a guardian of secrets and a harbinger of doom, waiting to lure others into the haunting embrace of the vanishing town of Maple Hollow.